How's it, guys? This is Dayvy FP and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video we're going to be talking about the Gameweek 12 preview. We're going to cover talking points such as, is Patrick Bamford essential? Which teams have the best fixtures defensively and from an attacking point of view? And then finally we're going to be looking at the captaincy options going into Gameweek 12. A quick disclaimer before we get into the video. Unfortunately, I'm having to record this video on Sunday afternoon as I am going away this week and I still wanted to get the preview and the team selection out for you guys. So there could be some changes to this preview. Maybe some players get injured or maybe even a fixture gets postponed for all we know. But just keep that in mind when you do watch this video, that maybe the information isn't as up to date as possible, but there are still some talking points that we can go over. So if the previously mentioned talking points are something you're interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. So a new season calls for a new sponsor, but here on the Dayvy FPL channel, we like our old. So I've brought back the old sponsor, OneFootball, but with a completely new revamped app. Yes, OneFootball has gone over a complete marketing revamp, new logo, new everything. I've checked it out, looks really good. They kind of took the old app, but just made it better. So I'm really appreciative of that. If you want to go check them out, link down in the description below to go download the app. If you don't know who they are, they're the biggest app on iOS and Android. So go check them out. I personally use them, so I can recommend them from a personal level. So the Champions League group stages are concluding this week. Fortunately, there's not many two games that you guys have to pay attention to, as most Premiership teams have already qualified for the knockout stages. The only team that hasn't qualified is Manchester United, so maybe keep one eye on that fixture, as I know it doesn't really mean anything for the short term, but in the long term it definitely has some implications. So just keep your eyes on that, but don't really have to worry about that too much. So since most teams have already qualified for the knockouts, I don't think there's going to be too many first team players playing, so just keep your eyes out if they do play, whether they get injured or not, and just basically their game time, as it is a midweek fixture. But as I said, nothing too big to worry about in the Champions League this week, so it might be an enjoyable midweek before Game Week 12. So the watch list has been updated with one player. We'll be talking about the two players that have been a main occurrence in the previous previews, but the new player is Reece James. So comes in at 5.2, has managed 1 goal, 2 assists, and played actually a surprising amount of minutes. So I said at the start of the season that if Reece James gets a lot of minutes, he's basically my favorite to be the most valuable player in the Premier League season, and that's basically exactly what's happened. He's come into that starting lineup, he's won the place as Pilaqueta's fallen out of the pecking order, which is a little bit surprising for me because he is the club captain, but I think Frank Lampard wants the best starting 11 possible, and Reece James is definitely filling that position. Now, they didn't manage to keep a clean sheet against Leeds, but I don't think there's going to be many Premiership teams that can keep a clean sheet against Leeds because of just how attacking they are. So I definitely am looking at Reece James. I am a Chilwell owner, so that would be a double up in that Chelsea defense, but they really are looking quite solid defensively, and at 5.2 million, quite a nice downgrade there for one of my Man City defenders when I get tired of that rotation, as I'm pretty sure that Reece James is going to be starting most games. And then the two other players in the watch list, Callum Wilson and Jack Grealish, so nothing much to talk about them in Game Week 11 as their fixture was postponed. I guess the main watch and see for Newcastle is whether they're going to be starting this week against West Brom. Crystal Palace absolutely smashing West Bromwich Albion. I know they only had 10 men, but it still was 5-1, so maybe Newcastle could replicate that result, and I think definitely Callum Wilson is going to be a good option to go for. We're even going to be talking about him as a potential captaincy option a little bit later on, but if Newcastle come back with a fixture in Game Week 12 after this whole postponement issue, Aston Villa I think definitely will have a fixture, as just remember that it was Newcastle that was the reason for this postponement, but both of these sides should potentially have a double game week coming up, and that's why they're on my watch list currently. I'm just waiting for more news about that potential double game week coming up, and then both of these players could potentially see their way into my starting 11, because the double game week, we got to take advantage of that. But both players, as I said, not much to talk about there. We've spoken about their stats in depth in previous previews, so I'm just going to move on from that. So the main talking point of this video is basically going to be, is Bamford essential? So we saw Bamford score against Chelsea, his former team. So what I did this week was I took out Raul Jimenez for Bamford. I think the main reason for that was just because of Callum Wilson being out with Newcastle's postponement. So I wasn't really tempted by that fixture. So I brought Bamford in here because I knew the Chelsea fixture was a tough one, but then the fixtures after that look a lot better, and that's exactly what you can see here. So the first part of this whole deciding, is Patrick Bamford essential, although I don't think many players are essential, is we're first going to look at the fixtures, and then we're going to look at the stats and why I think, or why I don't think, you should be bringing him into your FPL squad. So on the fixture point of view, here's some really nice fixtures coming up. The one thing I will say about Leeds is that they're one of the most fixture-proof sides, I think, in the Premier League at the moment, just because of the style of play they do. They play a very high-intensity style, a very attacking style as well. And we could see this on the weekend against Chelsea, where they, even though they were 1-0 up, they still just attacked like maniacs. And I think that's going to only lead to more FPL points, especially for a player like Patrick Bamford. So West Ham and then Newcastle, the 2 next home fixtures. Then they face Manchester United, Burnley, West Bromwich Albion. I think that West Bromwich Albion is probably the game week that we're all going to be looking at. But I think in between that, they've got some really nice fixtures still coming up. So I think from a fixture point of view, I definitely think Leeds on the better side of fixtures. And I can see a lot of points coming from them, even from an attacking and a defensive point of view, because of just how good they've been looking against most sides. So I really have good faith in Patrick Bamford, and I definitely would say from a fixture point of view, it's looking good. So let's get on and see how the stats are looking. So I know we've spoken about Patrick Bamford in depth in last week's preview and just how good his stats are. What I did here to show you how good the stats are looking, I took Calvert-Lewin, as that seems to be one of the main transfers that people are considering, is the whole Calvert-Lewin to Patrick Bamford transfer, as Everton's fixtures are getting a lot tougher. So from a point of view of fixtures, I definitely would recommend maybe considering a Calvert-Lewin down to Bamford. But in terms of the stats, it even increases that thought. So what I did here was I took the past 5 game weeks of Patrick Bamford versus Calvert-Lewin, as although Everton started the season really well, over the last couple of game weeks, we've seen some regression from their attacking stats, and that you can see here. So if you compare them over the entire season, Calvert-Lewin and Bamford are actually pretty similar, but over the last 5 game weeks, we definitely can see Bamford edging up on all the attacking stats. While their shots on target are still a little bit similar, that seems to be quite the regular for Patrick Bamford. He gets a ton of chances, but he doesn't always score them. It seems like his shot accuracy is a little bit on the low side, as well as that shot conversion rate, which can be a little bit worrying, but the nice thing is that he still is getting those chances, and as we saw with Chelsea, it just kind of takes one chance for him to get some points and some bonus points, and that's exactly what I want. So I would recommend going from Calvert-Lewin to Patrick Bamford. The best scenario would be to just have both of them in my own FPL teams. I have Calvert-Lewin and Bamford. They're my 2 strikers up front, with Ollie Watkins accompanying them. So I would recommend getting both of them if you can, but if you need to make a transfer, and this is the kind of the only fire you need to put out, I would probably look at taking Calvert-Lewin out for Bamford, because I just think with those fixtures accompanied with the stats that he's showing are going to lead to some FPL success. So that would be my kind of recommendation. And I do think with Patrick Bamford's high ownership, if you don't have him in, I would potentially look at a way of bringing him in, because I think he's going to be a great option in the next couple game weeks. So the next talking point we're going to be going over, as promised, is the best fixtures. So I know this is quite a general pick, but what I had to do was, because I'm recording this video so early on, I just wanted to get some general more talking points. So what I did was best fixtures from an attacking point of view and a defensive point of view. So the top 3 teams they are from an attacking point of view, we can see Liverpool, Leeds and Newcastle. So if Patrick Bamford's stats and fixtures weren't good enough for you, he has one of the best fixture runs in the Premier League at the moment, listed as the 2nd highest rated next 5 fixtures. So Leeds with 1.4. You can see there West Ham, Newcastle, Burnley and West Bromwich Albion, which I could perfectly understand. I think they're going to get some good results in that one. But we also see Liverpool and Newcastle in here, which is why Newcastle and Callum Wilson were on my watch list, because imagine if they do have a double game week slotted in one of these games. I mean, the perfect scenario would probably be a Fulham a double game week with that Aston Villa game, and then I think we're all going to be bringing Callum Wilson in. But these 3 teams are what you should be looking at from an attacking point of view, and I think this kind of just brings the importance to maybe bringing in a Mo Salah if you don't have him, or maybe even doubling up on a Diego Jota. So the bottom 3 teams there are the best teams from a defensive point of view, Burnley, Liverpool and Brighton. So Liverpool just showing their good strength of fixtures from an attacking and a defensive point of view. And why this is interesting for me is because Trent Alexander-Arnold is coming back from injury. So if Trent's back and firing, I think it's going to be quite hard to ignore him, and I definitely think around that game week 14 mark, we could be looking at bringing him back into our squads after that Spurs game. Burnley's also quite a surprise for me, as I am a Charlie Taylor owner, so it's nice to know that they still have some good fixtures coming up. And then also Brighton, if you're a Lamptey owner or maybe want another keeper, look at Matt Ryan, as their fixtures apparently are also quite good from a defensive point of view. So the final talking point we're going to be going over is the captaincy debate. So I think it's pretty simple, a question this week like it was last week. It's pretty much who's playing the best fixture, and that's going to be Liverpool. So I've highlighted Mo Salah here. You could also go for Sadio Mane or Diego Jota. I think all 3 of them should be good options. Just maybe monitor the situation in the Champions League and see which players are rested, because I think it's basically what's been happening in the previous games, is that front 4 of Salah, Mane, Firmino, and Jota have been rotating a little bit, and it seems every other week one of them gets rested. So just monitor the situation against Wolves, and then also monitor the Champions League game. Although I think in the Champions League fixture they're going to be playing a pretty young squad, so most of the big boys should be rested. But I think standout captaincy options this week are going to be the Liverpool assets. So if you have one of them, captain them. If you don't have the one of them, maybe look at bringing one in, because I think from a captaincy point of view, there's not many other teams that rival them. The next option we've spoken about from a more differential point of view is Callum Wilson against West Bromwich Albion. So West Bromwich Albion have been really poor. I know that Newcastle aren't the most attacking side, but I definitely think that if they do have this fixture in Game Week 12, Callum Wilson is basically guaranteed to start and score. So that's more of a safety option, but also a nice differential option. And then finally, I've gone for Bruno Fernandes. So I think a lot of people will be surprised why I didn't go for someone like Kevin De Bruyne, but I just think it's because Bruno Fernandes has been so consistent, and he definitely will start this one. I know in Game Week 11 he didn't start the game, but I think that just was because of a little bit of a rest before that Champions League fixture. He definitely will start in this one, and because of his consistent points returns, he could look like a good option. However, if you have Liverpool, I definitely would captain him over Bruno Fernandes. So that's basically a wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new or have not subscribed yet. I'll be checking you guys on my Twitter page at DayvyFPL, otherwise in the team selection coming up in a few days' time. I'm going to be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.